You may know her from such films as The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, Hidden Figures, or Think Like a Man, or perhaps the hit TV show Empire. But who is the woman behind these roles? We will find out by taking a look at Around the Way Girl, a memoir. Hello and welcome. My name is Eva, master's level professional in the field of psychology, author, and international book coach. And I am excited because today we are talking about the memoir, rolling right along with the series, and we are discussing my girl, Taraji P. Henson. She is definitely the home girl, her memoir, Around the Way Girl. Now, within the first chapter, within the first couple of paragraphs, I was already hooked and really rooting for her and wanting her to certainly win. Now, so we are going to, let's go ahead and roll our sleeves up and jump right in, because you are going to learn two things. You are going to learn a summary and some facts and information about Miss Taraji P. Henson, and you are also going to learn some elements of the memoir that I will point out. And of course, I will use some examples and give you the page numbers and hook you up like that. All right, getting into some facts about Miss Taraji, one of which is that she was an extra with her best friend Tracy in the movie Malcolm X, of course, starring Denzel Washington. Another fact is that her father passed away while she was filming the movie Hustle and Flow, which definitely speaks to her resilience, which we'll discuss in a little bit more detail. Another fact is that when she was filming The Curious Case of Benjamin Button alongside Brad Pitt and Cate Blanchett, she actually stayed at an embassy suite for 3 months, for which she paid out of pocket. So we'll get into that a little bit more also. So essential elements of a memoir, of course, have to do with describing or briefly mentioning elements of one's childhood and those important people in your life. So we'll start with her mother. Taraji does an excellent job of describing her childhood coming up in Washington, D.C. So we know that it's a busy, bustling area. And again, we know that there has been a long-standing problem with the drug abuse in the area. Her mother was robbed a couple of times, and she was a witness to these crimes. So one day she's watching her mother at the table, stressing out over bills. Her parents are not together at this point, and you know, if you know a single mother, if you are a single mother, you know sometimes the funds are low and the debts are high. So she writes, though she tried not to show it, living paycheck to paycheck got to her. It would often show up on her face, mostly in the evenings when she'd sit at the kitchen table, hunched over a stack of bills, rubbing her temples and fighting back tears when she saw the words final notice and past due written in bright red block letters on the top of her statements. I may have been too young to process the gravity of it all, but I was intuitive. My mother was hurting. I remember once when I was 11 years old, tiptoeing up to her in my pajamas and running my hand over her back. Don't cry about money, Mommy, I implored. I'ma be rich one day. And so here we get a sense of 11-year-old Taraji comforting her mother and giving her mother that support, and knowing even at that early age, look, I got this. I'm going to be a star. Now, if that ain't resolve, I don't know what is. So let's keep moving right along. Another element of a memoir is to mention some of those hard learned lessons when you are going through your journey. And a lot of times, those lessons we learn the hard way have to do with our significant others. And so she's really open in describing her relationship with her child's father. So Taraji also ends up being a single parent. She has a young son, and she is describing the relationship she had with her son's father and how it mimicked essentially the story that she had in the character she had in Baby Boy when she played Vet, of course. Let me go ahead and read a couple of her lines. And if you are going to write a memoir of your own and you have a situation that you're not necessarily proud of in retrospect, but somebody else might be able to learn a thing or two, it's worth mentioning. So on page 89 of the hardcover text, she writes, "We had that Jody and the Vet Baby Boy kind of love. Passionate, raw, young, dumb, and out of control. Like a tragically immature, stunted main character in John Single's critically acclaimed urban cult classic. That's what you get though when you mix youth with inexperience, shake in some hood, and boil it with a heap of hot tempers, an intoxic brew of tragic ghetto love." What? Mic drop. Holla if you hear me. Another essential element of the memoir is to discuss significant losses, right? They're gonna happen, and they typically serve as a turning point. Either you become resilient, you rise up and you fight, or you sort of let the situation defeat you. And one of Taraji's major losses came with the death of her father. She was literally there when he took his last breath. So one of the things I stress when writing is that you have to convey emotion. So you want to connect with the humanity in others and really draw it out of them. If you can make somebody cry when they are reading your book, that means you got them. They are going to remember your story. So I just want to read a couple of lines from her book when she's talking about the experience. Now, I got choked up myself when I read this. So on page 160 of the hardcover text, she writes, now this gets a little graphic, so bear with me a moment. "It was a rainy, bitterly cold February night in 2006 when my father started taking that slow, torturous walk towards his final day. My stepmother crumpled her body on the bed alongside my father, the only thing keeping her from falling to the floor in overwhelming grief. She'd just witnessed my father throw up what looked like coffee grounds, curdles of blood that had accumulated in his body as his organs began to shut down. I caught a glimpse of the doctor shaking his head. 'What does that mean?' I asked him. The doctor swallowed his words. 'He's bleeding internally,' he said. Finally, his face grinned." So, as I mentioned, when you talk about your losses, it's going to be difficult. It might be hard for you to write in retrospect, but again, this is a way you can tell your story and sort of get that sense of relief when you get it out on paper. It's another way of sort of processing those losses you may have felt. So definitely make sure you are raw and real when you need to be. Another element of a memoir is to discuss the breakthrough, or the moment that you finally get to that level that you've been working so hard towards. Now, prior to Taraji's appearance in Benjamin Button, she had played several other parts in movies and film that had done quite well. However, this was her first film alongside these blockbuster characters that we see, like Brad Pitt and Kate Blanchett. So this is a huge budget. It's gonna garner her a ton of exposure, and she almost didn't go to the casting. She was hosting a garage sale or yard sale, and her manager essentially had to give her a good kick in the pants and say, "Get your behind over there to meet with the casting director and the director." So reluctantly, she cancels her yard sale and goes over, only to notice that instead of it being a huge cattle call sort of casting audition, she was the only person invited. So basically the role had been given to her, basically. So just imagine if she decided not to go, she just brushed it off. We wouldn't have seen her in this iconic film that, launched her into superstardom at this